Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother and sister, welcome back to Islamic Notes channel. Zaghlul al-Najjar, Muslim scientist and modern geologist. Professor Dr. Zaghlul al-Najjar is a scientist whose full name is Zaghlul Raghib Muhammad al-Najjar and is known as a devout Muslim. His grandfather became a permanent imam in his village mosque. His father is a memorizer of the Qur'an. He himself had completed his Al-Qur'an memorization before turning 9 years old. At that age, little Zaghlul migrated to Cairo with his father and entered primary school in the capital of the Nation of the Prophets. After growing up, he studied at the Faculty of Science, Department of Geology, Cairo University, and graduated in 1955 with summa cum laude. As the best graduate, he was a geologist born in Egypt who was very proactive at this time. The involvement, positions, and awards he received because of his efforts are proof of his character. In office, he holds the chairmanship of the Science Committee in the Qur'an, Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, Cairo, Egypt. He won the Baraka Award for the geology category. He then earned a PhD degree in Earth Sciences and Geology from the Wales University of England, United Kingdom, in 1963. In 1972, he was confirmed as a professor of geology. He was appointed a fellow in the Academy of Islamic Sciences in 1988. He is also a member of the Geological Society of London, the Geological Society of Egypt, and the American Association of Petroleum Geologists, Tulsa, Oklahoma. In 2000 to 2001, he was elected rector of the Markfield Institute of Higher Education, England, and since 2001 has been the head of the Miracles Commission of Al-Qur'an and Sunnah Science at the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs in Egypt. With his expertise in science-based interpretation of the Qur'an, he routinely writes regular articles in the column Min Asrar al-Qur'an, Secrets of the Qur'an, every Monday in Egypt's Al-Ahram Daily, which has a circulation of 3 million copies every day. Until now, more than 250 articles have been published about the miracles of science in the Al-Qur'an. In addition, he also has many writings, such as books or research, in Arabic or English. Many of his books have been translated into other languages, such as the book Wonderful Scientific Sight in the Qur'an. He has published more than 150 scientific studies and articles, as well as 45 books written in Arabic, English, and French. Most of his publications are related to the miracles of science in the Qur'an. Zaghlul collected around 70 hadiths, which were used as research material. Each hadith is accompanied by scientific facts found by scientists that are the same theme as the discussion. That way, the scientific miracles contained in the hadith were revealed one by one. One of them is about the resurrection of humans from the spine, tail. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, "All parts of the body of the son of Adam will be destroyed by the earth except the tailbone. From it he was created, and with it he is resurrected," narrated by Muslim. In the hadith, it is explained that the human tailbone will never be destroyed by the earth like other parts of the body. This has been proven by research conducted by genetic scientist Keith L. Moore. For this professor of archaeology, the phases of scientific development will actually lead to the achievement of truth. Law. In the end, science will continue to develop, and it is impossible to go backwards. Zaghlul al-Najjar was an important figure in the history of the spread of Islam in the Arab world, especially in Egypt. The story of his conversion to Islam is not only interesting because of his personal background, but also reflects a profound thought process and major changes in his life. Al-Najjar was known as an intellectual and an active figure in Egyptian society before finally embracing Islam. His spiritual journey shows how Islam is able to attract individuals from various backgrounds to accept the moral and spiritual messages contained within it. Background. Zaghlul al-Najjar was born into a family traditionally connected to Christianity, particularly the Coptic tradition. From a young age, he was well educated and raised in an environment that encouraged him to think critically and explore various disciplines. Al-Najjar was deeply interested in science, philosophy, and the world's religions. However, despite being raised in the Christian tradition, he began to feel a spiritual void that his beliefs at the time could not fully answer. The quest for truth. In his youth, Zaghlul al-Najjar began his search for truth and the keys to deeper spirituality. He began studying various religious texts, including the Bible and philosophical works, with the aim of finding a deeper understanding of creation, life, and the purpose of human existence. However, although he gained much insight from these studies, there was a sense of dissatisfaction that hung over him, as if his spiritual quest was still incomplete. This led al-Najjar to begin a deeper study of Islamic teachings. Like many other intellectuals interested in Islamic teachings, he was attracted to the logic and coherence of the message contained in the Qur'an and the Islamic attitude towards science and morality. He also felt that many aspects of Christian teaching did not provide adequate explanations for the philosophical questions he had been facing. Meeting with Islam. Zaghlul al-Najjar first became acquainted with Islamic teachings through literary studies. He began reading various interpretations of the Qur'an, books on Islamic history, and biographies of the Prophet Muhammad. One of the important factors that influenced his journey to Islam was his interest in the scientific thinking contained in the Qur'an and how the Qur'an connects God's revelation with human scientific pursuits. This rational thinking greatly impressed al-Najjar, who was previously accustomed to philosophical thought. In addition, al-Najjar also began to contact Muslim scholars who helped him understand more deeply about Islamic teachings. They explained that Islam is not just a religion, but also a system of life that includes spiritual, social, and scientific aspects. This opened al-Najjar's eyes to see that Islam has comprehensive solutions to the problems of humanity and life. Process of converting to Islam. Zaghlul al-Najjar's decision to embrace Islam was not an impulsive one. Rather, it was the result of a long process of searching and deep reflection. He felt that Islam offered more adequate and logical answers to the big questions in his life. After careful reflection and study of Islamic teachings, al-Najjar finally decided to pronounce the 2 sentences of the shahada, a sign of acceptance of Islam as a religion and a way of life. His conversion was not only a change of religion, but also a profound change in his outlook on the world and life. In Islam, he found a balance between divine revelation and reason, between spirituality and rationality, that he felt he could not find in his previous religious teachings. Impact of conversion. After embracing Islam, Zaghlul al-Najjar became one of the figures who were active in spreading Islamic teachings, especially among intellectuals and academics. As a scientist, he spoke a lot about the relationship between religion and science, and how Islam can contribute to the development of world civilization. Al-Najjar emphasized the importance of integrating scientific knowledge with the moral values contained in the Islamic religion. He also spoke extensively about the importance of education in Islam and how society can develop by prioritizing knowledge and faith. For al-Najjar, Islam is the key to creating a better society, one that is not only advanced in material aspects, but also in moral and spiritual aspects. Conclusion. The story of Zaghlul al-Najjar's conversion to Islam is a spiritual journey that reflects the importance of seeking truth in life. His decision to embrace Islam shows that Islam is a religion that offers a deep understanding of life in the universe and provides practical solutions to the challenges of everyday life. His conversion also shows that Islam can be accepted by people from various backgrounds, whether intellectual, social, or cultural. Through his life journey, Zaghlul al-Najjar shows that a sincere spiritual search can lead a person to a deeper understanding and ultimately choose the path that is in accordance with the truth that is found. Zaghlul al-Najjar, geologist of Egyptian origin, expert in tafsir al-Qur'an science. Zaghlul al-Najjar, with his tafsir work, Tafsir al-Ayat al-Kawniyya fi al-Qur'an al-Karim, enlivened the world of interpretation with a different color. In this tafsir, we can see the interpretation of the Qur'an from a geologist. The study of the interpretation of the Qur'an continues to develop along with the changing times and realities in society. The rapid development of science and technology has resulted in the emergence of interpretation methods that adopt modern sciences in the process of interpreting the verses of the Qur'an. This is done solely to maintain the relevance of the Qur'an in responding to the challenges of the times. This interpretation method in the study of the Qur'an is called Manhaj at Tafsir al-Ilmi. Tafsir ilmi is a form of interpretation model that focuses on scientific studies, science, to explain the verses of the Qur'an that are kawniyya, or things related to nature. One of the contemporary Muslim scientists who is involved in this field is the professor of geology from Egypt, Zaghlul al-Najjar. Short biography. Al-Quran's scientific exegete, whose full name is Zaghlul Raghib Muhammad al-Najjar, was born on November 17, 1933, in the village of Mashal, Egypt. He got his early education about the Qur'an from his parents. Thanks to his father's upbringing, al-Najjar was able to finish the Al-Quran before turning 9 years old. As an adult, he took a bachelor's degree in geology at the Faculty of Science, Cairo University. Al-Najjar graduated and received a bachelor's degree in 1955 with the predicate summa cum laude, martaba al-sharf. Not stopping there, al-Najjar then continued his doctoral studies at the University of Wales, England, and graduated in 1963. Then in 1972, al-Najjar reached the peak of his academic career as a professor of geology at Kuwait University. As a geologist, al-Najjar has taught at various top universities in the world, including Ain Shams University, King Saud University, University College of Wales, University of Qatar, and King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals. In addition to teaching, he also actively holds various scientific positions and has received many awards. One of the awards he received was a grant award in the form of a gold medal from the President of Sudan, and was included in the 500 most influential figures in the world in the 2020 edition. Zaghlul al-Najjar is known as a very productive Muslim scientist. He has published more than 200 scientific articles and 25 books. He has also supervised 45 theses and dissertations at various universities. Some of al-Najjar's works include Al-Ard fi al-Qur'an al-Karim, Risalati ila al-Ummah, Ulum al-Ard fi Hadara al-Islamiyya, Madkhal ila Dirasa al-Ijaz al-Ilmi, and many others. Of these many works, one of his monumental works is Tafsir al-Ayat al-Kawniyya fi al-Qur'an al-Karim, sequences of the Quranic verses recited in the Holy Qur'an. Tafsir al-Ayat al-Kawniyya fi al-Qur'an al-Karim is a product of interpretation that examines the meaning of the verses of the Qur'an through a scientific approach. According to Sheikh Tantawi Jauhari, the total number of Kawniyya verses in the Qur'an is 750 verses. However, in the work, it was summarized by al-Najjar into 176 verses in 66 chapters. These verses were then used as the main theme in his study. Meanwhile, other Kawniyya verses that have similar themes will be merged into the discussion of the 176 verses. The tafsir work is divided into 4 volumes of discussion. The first volume discusses the Kawniyya verses in the letter al-Baqarah to the letter al-Isra. The second volume consists of the letter al-Kafi to the letter Luqman. The third volume contains the letter as-Sajdah to the letter al-Qamar. And finally, the fourth volume is the letter ar-Rahman to the letter al-Qari'ah. Before interpreting each verse one by one, al-Najjar first provides an introduction in the form of an explanation regarding the study of scientific interpretation, such as the definition and types of ijaz in the Quran, the history of the scientific interpretation method, the importance of scientific interpretation, and various things that underlie the use of a scientific approach in the process of interpreting the Quran. Zaghlul al-Najjar, Tafsir al-Ayat al-Kawniyya fi al-Qur'an al-Karim, pages 25 to 55. After explaining this, al-Najjar then interprets the selected Kawniyya verses one by one. The work of interpretation is basically a model of interpretation that is mawdhu'i, thematic. In the process of interpretation, al-Najjar describes the Kawniyya verses that are selected according to the order of Tartib Mushafi and explained in a tahlili, comprehensive manner. As an example of the interpretation, we can see it in the letter Ali Imran 3 verse 59. إن مثل عيسى عند الله كمثل آدم خلقه من تراب ثم قال لها كن فيكون. Indeed, the parable, creation, of Jesus for God, like the creation of Adam. He created it from the ground, then he said to it, be, so be that thing. Every time he enters a different verse theme, al-Najjar always provides a visualization in the form of a scientific image related to the theme to be discussed. For example, when discussing a verse about the process of human creation, al-Najjar presents a biological image of a fetus, uterus, embryo, and so on. In interpreting the verse about the creation of man, Zaghlul al-Najjar first explains the verses that have the same discussion theme about the creation of man, such as QS al-Kafi, 18, 37 QS al-Hajj, 22, 5 QS al-Rum, 30, 20 QS Fathir, 35, 11 QS Ghafir, 40, 67, and so on. After that, Zaghlul al-Najjar explains the process of human creation in the verse through a scientific approach, namely using biology. Thus, many biological terms are found in the interpretation of the verse, such as the terms nucleotides, nakadon, alpha type, polypeptides, and peptide bond. Zaghlul al-Najjar, Tafsir al-Ayat al-Kawniyah fi al-Qur'an al-Karim, pages 142-143. That's a glimpse of Zaghlul al-Najjar and examples of his interpretations. Zaghlul al-Najjar's reading of the death verses. In addition to presenting verses of life guidance, the Qur'an also provides information about verses about death. The verses about death conveyed in the Qur'an have no other purpose than for humans to further strengthen their faith. The interpretation of the verses about death is usually explained by mufassirs with a theological or philosophical approach. However, this is different from Zaghlul al-Najjar, a mufassir who often interprets the verses of the Qur'an with a scientific interpretation. In the hands of al-Najjar, the verses about death in the Qur'an become something that can be understood rationally and scientifically. Tafsir Zaghlul al-Najjar about death verses. Zaghlul al-Najjar is indeed known as an interpreter with a scientific scientific interpretation style. In his work of interpretation, Tafsir al-Ayat al-Kawniyah Zaghlul uses the same approach as his predecessor, Tantawi Jauhari, but is more concise and dense in terms of his explanation. Regarding the verses of the Qur'an that discuss death, Zaghlul only chooses a few verses to explain at length, perhaps so that there is no repetition of the discussion. In this case, Zaghlul emphasizes more on Surah Al-Waqi'ah, verse 60, نَحْنُ قَدَّرْنَا بَيْنَكُمُ الْمَوْتَ وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمَسْبُوقِينَ. We have decreed death between you and we shall never be defeated. In Tafsir al-Ayat al-Kawniyah, Zaghlul believes that the death of every creature is in the hands of Allah with a predetermined time of death, as explained in the verse above. However, regarding the method of death, he explains it scientifically, starting with the explanation that every living cell has a special mechanism that regulates the age of the cell, with the form of a cap on the end of each chromosome at its boundary. The length of the cap will continue to decrease with each division, until at a certain limit the division process stops and the cells die. In context, according to Zaghlul, the verse above cannot be separated from the verses before or after it. The context of the discussion, which is still on the same theme, is precisely the series of Surah Al-Waqi'ah, verses 58 to 62. The series of verses in the surah is expressed by Zaghlul as a correlation that the determination of death is very closely related to the beginning of human creation. This is a process that is programmed into the genetic code that is formed when male and female semen meet. The factor of chromosome quantity structure, according to Zaghlul, also plays a role here. The chromosomes that number 46 will move towards the number of completeness and integrity, where one sperm carries half of that number, which is 23 pieces. The integrity of the dominant number of chromosomes will bring out the characteristics and physical formation of humans, and the hidden ones will be stored and passed down to the next generation. Until when the cells reach their death, their mechanism stops. The cells, including the chromosomes, will be eliminated and die. There is another verse of death that Zaghlul interprets scientifically, namely Surah Ar-Rum, verse 19. However, the interpretation of Surah Ar-Rum, verse 19, is only explained by Zaghlul as a separation of the forms of matter, namely living matter and dead matter. As mentioned at the beginning, Zaghlul does emphasize the scientific explanation of the verses of death at length by emphasizing the series of Surah Al-Waqi'ah, verses 58 to 62. It seems that this is intended so that there is no repetition of discussion and to condense his interpretation. Scientific explanation of Zaghlul al-Najjar's interpretation. An important condition that must be met in the interpretation of bil ilmi is the aspect of scientific discovery that has been proven and verified, in addition to other provisions that must also be met. However, the aspect of scientific discovery is the core key to the interpretation, because it is its elan vital. Likewise with Zaghlul, he really pays attention to this part. In interpreting the verses about death, Zaghlul refers to a number of discoveries by scientists who are experts in biology and science in his tafsir work. His interpretation of the theory of cell division of organisms, he refers to the discovery of a Russian biologist named Alexei Matveyevich Olonikov in 1971. The discovery revealed the existence of a certain mechanism that can make cancer cells continue to divide and duplicate themselves from dominance. The mechanism of cell division is called telomerase. In addition, Zaghlul also presented research conducted by Carol W. Greider and Elizabeth H. Blackburn in 1985. The research explained the enzyme compound found in the body of organisms called the telomerase enzyme. This enzyme functions to rejuvenate body cells and reduce DNA damage that results in aging. However, as humans age, the production of this telomerase enzyme decreases and eventually telomeres shorten, causing DNA to no longer be able to protect itself from damage. Regarding cell shortening, Zaghlul mentioned the latest discovery that confirmed it, namely research conducted by Howard Cook in 1986. Howard's research stated that the length of chromosome telomeres continues to decrease along with the division of living cells. This means that the two are interrelated. Each chromosome telomere that is programmed at a certain number of divisions is called a replicometer, multiplication counter, and also a longevity meter, time limit counter. The discovery of this mechanism proves that death is actually determined in every living cell because of the limitation of the number of divisions that can stop the next division process, resulting in expanding space for cell destruction until the cell dies. The scientific studies were concluded by Zaghlul that death has been programmed in every living creature which has living cells so accurately. The accuracy of the time of death in every living creature can of course only be given by Allah the Almighty. Here, scientific and religious truths find their honeymoon. Science explains that every living cell since its birth has been programmed with its dead cells. Likewise, religion explains that every living thing will surely die, as stated in Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 57.